Well, hello, and welcome back to Simskies. Yeah, hi. You're going to see me for a change in one of these Simskies podcast episodes. Well, today's episode, I want to talk about our favorite routes. I was watching 757 Spy a little bit in the evening recently, and in the chat, they were talking about your favorite routes. Routes. Roots or routes? How do you say it now? That brings up a whole different kind of conversation now. But anyways, they were talking about your favorite routes with Flight Sim. Why do you fly them and what they are. And that got me thinking a little bit about what my favorite routes are. Now, I've talked about it on the stream a couple different times and probably in some of my videos that my test flights, well, I have different test flights versus my go-to routes per se, right? So my test flights are out of, Orlando into Tampa. It's a short hop and it covers very little ground, but allows me to get up in the sky right away and get ready for the ready for the arrival right away. So I like to do that flight. It's like you get up to like 16,000 feet, if that, in an airliner, and you're good to go. So nice and low to the ground and a very fast overall flight. Well, when we look at other flights in terms of my go-to, well, this goes back a very long time. And I'm talking about back in Flight Sim 98. That's when I first got into flight simming. So my favorite route was where I was living at the time. I was living in Fargo, North Dakota. I know I was one of two people that live in that entire city. And I did a lot of flights into Minneapolis. And well, Minneapolis is weird though because I never lived in Minneapolis. I knew people who lived in Minneapolis. I went to visit Minneapolis many times. Went to Minnesota Twin games. Went to a Wild game, and of course spent a lot of time in the Mall of America, right? But Minneapolis never was a big thing for me, and I became very passionate about it because the Minneapolis airport's very cool, and the flight from Fargo to Minneapolis is very short. And we all know who, if you watched my streams or videos in the past, you know that I do love short flights, anything under 300 nautical miles personally. Well, my hometown is Chicago, Illinois. It's where I was born, raised for a couple of years, and then we moved to North Dakota, Minnesota. And so I spent a lot of time in North Dakota, Minnesota versus Chicago. Chicago, I go every summer when I was younger to visit my grandmother, but I was only there for a couple months and then go back home for the school year. But Chicago's always had that special part in my life, and well, that's where I live now. I live in a suburb of the Chicago area, and I absolutely love it. So, of course, Chicago to Minneapolis is one of my recent, in the last couple of years with flights in 2020, have become one of my recent longer, quote unquote, flights I do in the sim. And I also love doing Miami to Orlando. That's a really fun flight to do because flying out of either one, whether you're departing Miami or departing Orlando, both of them offer something a little unique and very challenging and very fun. And of course, you have the Florida weather, which always plays a wrinkle into everything, right? So that's a really cool flight to do. I also like San Francisco LAX, one of my favorite routes, period, because oh wow, the sunset, sunrise in off the west coast there is just gorgeous, and both of those airports are very well done, handcrafted airports in Flight Sim 2024 as well as in 2020. So both are very good overall with that. So those are like my most of the go-to flights. Now, of course, I do a lot of flights with A Pilot's Life Chapter 2, and more recently with Fly to Line. And I find that they both give me a lot of routes I really enjoy, and flights that I probably never would have done ever in my life. So I've got to learn and experience a lot of these different airports that have been a lot of fun. One of the routes I've enjoyed flying, and this is because of A Pilot's Life Chapter 2 and On Air and Fly a Line, has been JFK to Boston. Yeah, I know, it's weird that I never would have thought about flying out of these two airports into those two airports, but I absolutely love this flight. It's another short route that I absolutely love, and get to fly, JetBlue with a 319 or 320, whatever it be, and it's just a lot of fun flying that route. And then, of course, there are international routes. I'm domestically, of course, here in the U.S., but there are international flights that are absolutely cool. Anything out of Dublin is just amazing experience. Flying anything with Ryanair or Aer Lingus, right? I absolutely love flying in New Zealand, with Air New Zealand. Absolutely love New Zealand. It's on my bucket list to visit one of these days, hopefully. It's just a gorgeous place. Italy is also really, really cool. So now I'm curious, what are your go-to routes and why? What's the connection you have between those routes? You may be up in Canada where P2 was India, at one point as well. And then we have, of course, Will, who's over in Europe. He may have some European routes he absolutely loves. So it'd be cool to know what everyone's go-to routes are. And of course, why. Thanks for watching this episode of Simskies, and we'll see you for the next one. Take care.